Today I'm going to talk about the perfect beater work car. A 20 years old Toyota Corolla that my friend just bought for that very purpose for. What makes it the perfect beater work car is under the hood. These 4-cylinder Toyota engines can last forever. They're very dependable vehicles. I'm sure the emblem's all worn out, but hey, that thing must have 200,000 miles. That's not much for a Corolla. Now there's no saying how many owners the 20-year-old Corolla had. Since they're so reliable, you don't have to worry about that. Little bit of oil burning, which is typical in a worn engine, but if the engine's firing good, it just burns a little oil, which you can expect on an older engine. Of course you're going to check the air filter. Pop it out and just change it. The first thing you're going to do is to get new spark plugs. Now when you scanned it with a computer at a code for small leaks, change the gas cap too. It could easily have a leaking gas. You just pour it in the engine oil, take off the cap, pour the whole bottle in. Because you realize, when you buy a beater car, it's the type of car you check the oil every so often. The coolant is another thing. You just make chunks of stuff, because it's going to leak a little. While it's obviously using a little bit of cooling, you just keep topping that stuff up. Being a Corolla, it can still last for years and years if you keep up with the fluids, and yeah, the ride's a little bouncy when you hit bumps, because the struts are worn, but hey, it gets you down the road. It's a good work car, could last for years. If you hit the brakes hard at higher speeds, the steering wheel shakes a little because the rotors are somewhat warped, but what the heck, it still stops the car. You can put new rotors and pads on if you want. Next one is Mercury Grand Marquis. Still looks as sharp as it did the day it was made. Check under the hood, it's got the big old dependable V8 engine. You'd think it'd be a big gas hog, but these things really weren't. This thing gets about 17 miles per hour in town, and it gets a whopping 28 on the highway, because the way they're set up, the RPMs are pretty low when you're going 60 miles an hour. It's set up for cruising. You can drive these things all day long. Still in immaculate shape, and it's got semi-bucket seats. The back's a little more couchy, but there's some serious legroom in. The wood dash is still in good shape, tons of headroom for big people, and of course the trunk. It is gigantic. Check out the original wheels, 20 years old, they're still shining. Let's just say they don't make them like they used to. I see modern cars, they're 3 years old, and the allied wheels are already pitting. They made things well back in the day, and if you do need to fix things, look at the working room. You never see that anymore. The AC is still blowing ice cold, power steering still working, the ABS is still working. Now with this overbuilt engine and a solid transmissions, these things can basically run forever if you take care of them. Check out the digital readout. Not something you need a science degree to operate. With the overdrive turned on, it's getting in the high 20s on the highway. It's a classic rear-wheel drive car. They handle the best. People that are real serious about driving almost always want rear-wheel drive car. There's a reason race cars are rear-wheel drive, they just handle better. This thing is the classic rear-wheel drive. I've seen the differential still working fine even with 300,000 miles on them. With normal oil changes and regular maintenance, they can last forever. They are kind of like land yachts when you drive them. They are a cushy ride, but they're not tight handling. It's an old design, and with that big old V8 engine. There's a lot of people buying these things now. A lot of younger guys are suiting them up. Some of them turn them into low riders. It's a giant platform. You can do whatever you want with it. Now odds are you're not going to find too many old ones with low mileage on it, but they're still running good. I've seen these things go over 300,000 miles. You just pay less money, that's all. So really, if you're looking for a family cruiser, or you're a teenager who just likes old big American cars, you really can't go wrong with one of these. Can you get a car that actually runs good and makes a great work car? There's a lot of space in the trunk. Next one is Honda. The paint's faded away a little, but it is a Honda. Starts right up, and sure, the airbag system doesn't work anymore, but the seatbelts do, and they work perfectly fine. Now, this thing may have 300,000 miles on it, but the engine is just humming along. Honda is probably the best mass production company for engines in the world. Most people want quiet cars, but a lot of guys soup them up. One of the big advantages of Hondas is that you got choices. Many parts are interchangeable. You can always go to a salvage yard and don't have to spend much money. Now, how can these things last so long? Check out the sticker "Made in Japan" by Honda Motor Company. This little bitty engine may only have 102 horsepower and a whopping 98 pound-feet of torque. In a light car like this, they're still fun to drive. Now, of course, this is a work car, and as a work car you're not going to be doing drag racing. You really don't care. It's going to get you where you're going. It's going to be ultra dependable, even with all this mileage on it, because it's a Honda. You may say, you can't get parts for them, but you can go to any AutoZone and get what you need. Don't cost much. You could put another engine, a supercharger, and have a real sleeper car, because they're set up that if you change the suspension, a little bigger engine, it would be one screaming car, but in this case it's a transportation car. This thing can run all over the place and it still gets 40 miles a gallon going 90 miles an hour. They have these things really well built, there's no arguing. Let's face the facts, you buy a cheap car and drive it 90 miles an hour from Texas to Tennessee and back. You're certainly not going to attract the police's attention in this thing. It's not a red screaming sports car. This is still a fun country driving car. Take it out, have a little fun. You get a mass-produced car that's as well made, and there's still extremely dependable transportation, so there you have it. And yeah, it's got a few dings in it, but are you gonna worry about this thing when you take it to the Walmart parking lot? No, you aren't. So don't think too much. Thank you kindly for your time and have a nice day.